Let's speak about all of these issues. We're joined now by Senator Chris Coons, a Democrat from Delaware. Senator, thanks for joining us here on BBC News. First of all, when we see US citizens being killed by US federal agents on the streets of the US, what does that say to this country?
Well, Alex, Caitríona, I was sickened this weekend by the shooting of Alex on the streets of Minneapolis. As you just said, this harms our reputation around the world. This has caused millions of Americans to focus on what's happening in Minneapolis. This is the third shooting in as many weeks, and this is a reminder that we have far too many federal agents who are not adequately trained, who are carrying out actions and missions that are terrorizing local populations. They came into Minnesota without the invitation or cooperation of the governor and local law enforcement. There are ways that we can and should work together to impose stricter standards of conduct for federal agents like the Border Patrol agents and ICE agents who were involved in the shooting and the killing of Alex Petry.
The administration says it's the Democratic leaders on the ground agitating the situation and making it worse, frustrating the work of these officials. What do you say to that?
Well, the Minneapolis Association of Chiefs of Police has said that the number and the activities of the federal agents in Minneapolis is escalating an already dangerous situation. My hope is that federal law enforcement will withdraw from Minneapolis and turn their attention elsewhere, and that we in Congress can come to an understanding about how the law enforcement stands, the conduct standards that are expected of every state and local law enforcement official in the whole country ought to be the standards imposed on ICE agents and Border Patrol.
Is the news that Governor Tim Walz and President Trump have had this phone call that they both said has gone well, and we're seeing the President's border czar Tom Homan arrive there? Does that to you that perhaps things are about to improve?
Well, it's encouraging. And I also read this afternoon that Greg Bovino, who is a Border Patrol head, who's particularly aggressive and combative in the response to this tragic killing, he may well be removed from Minneapolis, and that may add to it as well. Look, the administration's senior officials, Secretary Noem, Mr. Bovino, immediately after this killing announced that he was a domestic terrorist, a disgusting characterization of a victim that had no basis in fact. And when millions of us then watched the body cams, the recordings of other citizens who were there making recordings of this particularly tragic incident, it was clear that wasn't the case. So if it's going to be the standard that anyone who is armed or anyone who comes to photograph or to record an action by ICE is subject to being killed, murdered in cold blood, that's a standard that I just don't think the average American is willing to stand for and is willing to tolerate. And that will play out on the floor of the Senate this week as we vote on the Homeland Security Appropriations Bill. I'm going to vote no, and I'm going to work with my colleagues to find ways that we can impose stricter oversight of federal agents when they're engaging in these sorts of immigration raids, for which many of them don't have appropriate training.
And just on that, when you mentioned the votes in the Senate, of course, the Democratic leader there, Chuck Schumer, saying the whole party will vote no. Is this something that Democrats are prepared to stand very firm on, even if it means shutting down the government? Yes,
but my hope is that we will see the Homeland Security bill separated, that we will vote and enact the rest of the appropriations bills so that the majority of the government doesn't shut down. And I've had a number of conversations with senators today and yesterday, Democrats and Republicans, who share a sense of shock and horror at this particular incident, well as the previous shootings. This has gotten out of hand. There are large numbers of federal agents descending on different cities around the country, and it's become more political theater than effective law enforcement. We have to take a step back. We have to find a way to de-escalate the situation and to hold accountable those who have conducted themselves in ways that most law enforcement officers around the country would not recognize.
Okay. Senator Chris Coons, Democrat from Delaware, thank you for joining us here on BBC News.
Thank you, Caitríona.